Intimacy is sometimes defined by saying, "Into me see." The most important aspect in relationships is to know and to be known. But it's also one of the most vulnerable aspects of relationships, right? The most intimate part of us is how I feel about what I think about. Inside of me are my feelings and my thoughts, and beliefs, and ideas and values. So let me ask you, are you a thinker or are you a feeler? You know, thinkers are people who speak with mostly details and facts and subjects. An example of this kind of speech would be, I think people ought to obey the driving laws, indicate when turning, take turns at a four-way stop, put their phone away while they're driving, keep their eyes on the road, drive on the right side unless passing, don't drive with your pet on your lap, and quit tailgating. These sentences are filled with thoughts and ideas and values, right? But it doesn't contain feeling words, so you could speculate what the person might feel, but it would be just a guess because they didn't communicate them. Now, on a side note, some people will trick you with a sentence that sounds like they're expressing emotion when they're really not, when they say something like this: "I feel like everyone needs to use their turn signal when making a turn." Well, they used the word feel in the sentence, as you noticed, but they didn't express a feeling word. All of the words being said are still concrete, factual words. So instead, if you were going to use that sentence, you would say, you know, "I believe everyone needs to use their turn signal when making a turn." Or if you wanted to express an emotion in that sentence, which I am recommending, you would put a feeling word immediately following the word feel. So, "I feel frustrated when I notice people not using their turn signal." Okay, so thinkers will often speak from one side of the brain, while feelers speak from the other side. And feelers are people who fill the verbal space with emotional words such as, "I feel so irritated and frustrated. I get so stressed and anxious. There's not a day that I don't feel anger and resentment. I get so confused and sometimes so angry that I cry." See, this person can express a lot of emotion with very few details or facts, which is just the opposite of the thinker example. Now, both of these examples are extremes, obviously, but I notice that people will often choose which side of the brain they speak from. The left side of the brain that controls logic and thoughts and beliefs and facts, or the right side of the brain that controls feelings, creativity, intuition. But the two hemispheres are actually tied together by bundles of nerve fibers, creating this information highway. And although the two sides function very differently, they work together to complement each other. You don't use only one side of your brain at a time. Now, people have learned to depend on one side more than maybe the other, and therefore their speech can reflect either more thoughts or more feelings. But the goal as a speaker is to be congruent, consistent, coherent in our speech, because the truth is we are both thinkers and feelers. I remember someone who was very adamant about not being a feeler. In fact, he would say, "I don't feel much at all." And so I would ask him, "Do you ever feel anger?" And he would say, "No, I don't get mad at all." And then I said, "Well, I'm not talking about expressing anger. I'm asking if you actually feel it." And he kept trying to convince me that he doesn't feel anger. The conversation went on long enough for him to finally, pound the arm of the chair with his fist as he said, "I'm telling you, I don't get angry." This was an example of someone who just couldn't think and therefore speak congruently. The obvious truth is he was expressing anger, being asked about feeling anger. But he had convinced himself that he doesn't feel that, certainly that particular emotion. You know, one way to help with congruent thinking is to identify an emotion along with a thought, or to identify a thought with an emotion. See, every thought has a corresponding emotion attached, and every emotion has an associated thought. So if I'm thinking about rude and insensitive drivers, what emotion might be attached to that thought? Or if I'm feeling irritated and anxious on my drive home, what might be a thought or belief or perception that would stimulate those emotions? So I want you to take some time and familiarize yourself with the emotional word chart, and then go through all of the exercises before proceeding to the next session.